So this video is all about feedback and ways to go about giving feedback to your employees if you were a boss or a manager and people in higher positions, stuff like that. So he talked about how right now there's a Stormageddon of feedback, which he pretty much meant the giver of the feedback gives the feedback to the receiver, and then he said they kind of do it in like a crap sandwich situation. So you give them something they're doing well, and he used the example of they they came to work on time all the time, and then he said they load all the bad stuff on, which is crap, and then he said you sprinkle a little bit of motivation on top and call it a crap sandwich. And he basically goes on saying how that doesn't really do anything. And then he goes into the feedback loop, which went from solicit to listen to assess and then integrate. So basically, he meant like he used the example of if there was a bear in the auditorium they were in. He said first you would like hear there's a bear in this auditorium, then you would listen, and then you would assess the situation, and then you're supposed to integrate like a plan and what you're gonna do. And he basically said that this loop doesn't get used as much as it should. And then he goes into how we get feedback from everywhere now. And he said it can be as simple as, like he said, it could be as simple as his wife telling him not to drink milk straight out of the carton, or he said it could be as complex as his watch on his wrist telling him that he needs to go walk a mile because he ate a carton of Ben & Jerry's ice cream last night. And then he talks about how feedback is supposed to make us better, but at work it is actually turned out to make us feel like crap, and then that in turn makes us perform worse at work because of how we receive the feedback. So he said the feedback has to be a closed loop, like in the feedback loop. So solicit, listen, assess, integrate. And he said as managers, which they try to strip all the feedback from the loop and put it into different categories and kind of section it all out and then give feedback like that. But he said once you strip everything from the feedback loop, it loses its core elements. And he said the core elements are timeliness, emotion, and context. And I kind of liked how he said you need to make sure that the feedback is in this closed loop and not to strip it all, because I mean, at jobs I've had, like, I mean, whenever I did get feedback, or like being on the soccer team here at Defiance, getting feedback, like saying in the crap sandwich form, like if you got told something you were doing well, and then they load on a bunch of crap in the middle, and then like motivated you at the end, it was kind of just like, well, he said I'm doing this well, but I suck at all this. So then you were kind of just unmotivated and kind of just felt like your boss or manager didn't really want you to succeed. And then with the feedback being a closed loop and not stripping everything down and doing all that, it just makes the feedback a lot more effective, because rather than trying to focus and strip it all down into one thing and making it kind of a crap sandwich, doing the loop allows you to, I don't know, it just makes the feedback seem more wholehearted. And then if your manager asks like how he could be better, it makes you feel like they're trying to make you better, but also trying to see what they can do to help you out and help them, and it just works a lot better. And then in the video, he goes into how there's a millennial Stormageddon, which he meant right now in the workforce, 25-year-olds are the largest percentage of the workforce and the poorest. But he said that millennials need constant feedback, but since boomers are the more likely to be the manager, they aren't raised like that. Boomers, he said, are more like, I don't need feedback. I can just work, and I know if I'm doing well or not. And he said with boomers being the managers, they don't give that constant feedback like millennials need, or boomers just don't know how to give millennials the feedback in a way that's effective. So it just kind of leads to the crap sandwich and then doesn't work. And then he goes into an example of, he talks about his friend who was a CEO of, like, at the time it was a $600 million company, and he asked him about what scares him the most, and his friend said that he's worried about getting lost in the process of the company, because at the time he had, I think the guy said he had 2 competitors at the time, and they were both growing really rapidly and getting big, and he was just kind of staying stagnant, so he was worried about that. And the speaker said the CEO eventually had this realization that people drive business, but emotions drive people. So this led to him, he stopped giving advice to people, and instead of giving all this advice to people and telling them what they should do better and how they can be better for the company and work harder for the company, he started asking for advice in return. So this helped the company because they came up with innovations, better customer service. They ended up being $1 billion company, or making $1 billion in revenue, and then they lost the other 2 competitors because they both went bankrupt after they started doing the feedback in a way where he was getting the feedback from his employees. So it just really helped the company grow and perform better. And he said that this is how every company should do it, and if you're not doing it like this, then as a manager you really need to think about things. And if you're working in a company like this where you're not the manager, he said, you should probably get out of it because it's not going to work for much longer. And he went into how annual performance reviews should not happen anymore because they don't do anything, and instead every company should go to the way of not managers giving advice but asking for it, and just kind of using your whole company to come up with ideas and plans. And he said it would really help every company to perform better.